The talks between Syria and Israel, which have been ongoing for about a year, are serious. Both sides have an interest in the talks themselves, and both sides also have a potential interest in a land for peace treaty over the Golan Heights. The talks, however, are in a waiting period. There's a leadership crisis in Israel, of course, so until that's resolved and until there's a new partner on the Israeli side, that will take them some time. And both parties have been waiting for the next U.S. administration to take a position to engage in the talks or not to engage in the talks. Syria and Israel have different reasons for wanting this peace treaty. Syria has an interest in regaining the Golan Heights, which were occupied by Israel in 1967. And Syria has been locked in proxy war with Israel since 1967, essentially, largely, unfortunately, through Lebanon, in order to put pressure on Israel to bring back the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights issue has clouded and made the situation very conflictual and very tense on the Syria-Lebanon front. And a resolution of that situation, an ending of the Israeli occupation on the Golan Heights, would transform the politics of that part of the Middle East. The U.S., I would say, in 2009, has much more of an interest in peace in the Middle East than it did in the 90s, when in fact a deal was almost done between Syria and Israel in 96. It was almost done again in 2000. I mean, it was very, very close to a deal. And that was at a time when the U.S. did not have as much involvement in the Middle East. And hence, the issue was not as urgent as it is today. The U.S. today in Iraq, in Afghanistan, at war with radical Sunni fundamentalism or radical Islamic fundamentalism, at war with several groups in the region, can't afford to be as nonchalant almost as it has been in the past. And the U.S. has a very keen interest in making peace in the region. Here is an opportunity to do it. It must be done properly. It must be done without selling the farm, without appeasement, certainly without selling Lebanon or Iraq or any other players down the road. It can be done. Israel is interested. Syria is interested. It can be done, and it should be an issue that's addressed in the next administration. This administration has discredited or tried to discredit diplomacy and to try to equate diplomacy with weakness. That is historically not the case. It should not be the case. Diplomacy can be based on very strong and tough positions or on weak positions. They're separate issues. And the diplomacy for the next U.S. administration for this issue should be very tough and very strong, but at the same time forward-thinking, creative, and nuanced and intelligent. What is needed is a well-thought-out, strong, nuanced, firm, intelligent diplomatic initiative or political initiative. This should be a high-level envoy, a tough envoy, but an intelligent one with experience in the region and with direct access to the president, to the next president. A peace treaty between Syria and Israel, if done properly and without with red lines and with conditionality, particularly vis-a-vis Lebanon and Iran, in other words, to protect them from such a process, would have massive consequences. Obviously, peace between Syria and Israel themselves, these two major players in the region, moving from a situation of war to peace would certainly calm the region in general by itself. Peace between Syria and Israel would be followed by or accompanied by peace talks between Lebanon and Israel, or even a peace treaty between Lebanon and Israel. This would be sort of an added bonus or an added dynamic. Lebanon has suffered the most from the conflict between Syria and Israel, and Lebanon will not see peace unless there's a general peace. It cannot do it, cannot escape that fate alone. Peace talks between Lebanon and Israel will certainly impact Hezbollah. Hezbollah would have to decide either to join those peace talks. It is today part of the government and part of the parliament, and it might have to either join the talks and become part of this new situation and figure out how to eventually integrate itself with the Lebanese state and the Lebanese armed forces, or face the very difficult and I would say unsustainable choice of defying Syria, which is the main player in the region, and trying to maintain a militant position in Lebanon by itself. That strategically is not sustainable, and that will not work in the medium term. So I believe if there's peace between Syria and Israel, soon there will also be peace between Lebanon and Israel. This will impact the dynamics on the Israeli-Palestinian track in both ways. I think the Israelis, if they find peace with Syria is working and peace with Lebanon is working, will feel much more confident and much less insecure about settlements and some details on the West Bank, and less tension and less fear, which would enable them and their internal politics in Israel to put forward leaders and platforms which are more flexible towards the Palestinian side, and that would help. On the Palestinian side, it would impact Hamas very much. Hamas's extreme position is sort of banking on the dynamic, well, that Syria is in this position, Lebanon is in this position, Hezbollah, Iran, that there's so many players with Hamas that it's a viable strategy. If Syria ends this, shifts its position, then followed by Lebanon, or even if it's not followed by Lebanon, the ability of Hamas to pursue such a sort of radical strategy will be much reduced, and it will have to deal with a different reality and probably move much more towards the center. This will facilitate a rapprochement between Hamas and Fatah, and will make it quite clear that negotiation really is the only option. And this, from the Palestinian side, would facilitate also talks between Palestine and Israel. So if talks with Syria would lead to progress in Lebanon, progress in Palestine, obviously if those Syria and Palestine are secured, and we're talking this will take years, this opens the door for general peace between the Arab states and Israel, which is part of the Arab Peace Initiative that was announced in 2002, and really an ending of the Arab-Israeli conflict per se. The influence on Iran would be quite clear. Iran is not happy with this process, will not be happy with this process, might try to obstruct it or stop it. But if Syria and Israel are serious, and if the US is also serious, and Europe is, and France and so on, this could be moved forward. If it happens, Iran would certainly lose influence in Syria to some degree, and in Lebanon and in Palestine. It would still have, the Iranian nuclear issue would still be the same. It would still be a big problem. And Iranian influence in Iraq would remain very strong, but Iran certainly would have a reduced influence in that part of the Middle East. Finally, and this was mentioned by Mr. Daniel Levy, another panelist on the panel, he talked about Egypt and the potential impact of Egypt. People underestimate the risk that Egypt poses today, particularly in the succession crisis. While Syria and Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran and the Muslim Brothers are all in a very strong sort of radical rejectionist situation, a crisis in Egypt, if it begins to unravel a little bit, could move in a very dangerous direction. Whereas if there's peace between Syria and Israel, and then possibly peace between Lebanon and Israel, the mood in the immediate environment of Egypt would be significantly changed, and that this would even have an impact on the Egyptian politics, as it were, and would help make the transition, when it happens, a bit safer than it might be. And indeed, if Egypt unravels, a lot will unravel in the region.